Welcome to another walk in the woods with Brandy and I. So, last walk in the woods I was talking about the 5 fear compass, and I had created a quiz for that, and it was pretty good quiz, I thought. Turned out pretty decent. Yeah, I'll have that linked again in the pinned comment below in case you want to check that out if you didn't get to check it out already. But I wanted to kind of follow up on it a little bit because I was thinking a little bit more on the fear that has affected me more lately in life, and that's the fear of draining activities or fear of wasting time. For me, it's something that I have to, you know, there's a boundary between, a thin line I should say, between a fear and, say, maybe a logical protection, a practical constraint, you know, something that you are being mindful of, something you're being careful of. And if you have a lot of things going on, or if you feel like there's a lot of things that demand and want your attention, and you deal with frustration trying to get things accomplished, get things done because of all that's calling for your attention, it's very easy to go back and forth between a reasonable amount of self-protection from overcommitment and from things that are just going to drain you, things that are not actually going to produce fruit, or it's going to cause you to sacrifice what you really want to do. And then on the other hand, where you just don't want to take on anything new, or you just don't want to, you know, maybe reach out for a new client, or take on an additional project. And there's a balance to be found there. So that's kind of what I'm trying to figure out, is where is the line? Where's the line between when it's fear and it's not really rational per se, and when is it just being logical? When is it just protecting yourself from a waste of time, from something that's going to drain you, that's going to take you away from what you're really wanting to do? I guess my personal probing of that question and what I'm trying to arrive at here, I think it comes down to gut feeling to some extent. But I think, for one thing, for me, if it's the fear, it manifests a lot as anger. I get angry because I feel like I don't have time for this. I can't, handle that. Everything's taking me away from what I really want to be doing right now. Yeah, it definitely comes up with a sort of negative energy when it's the fear, and I get in a rush, and I start, being more hasty and really trying too hard, too fast to get something accomplished, and I'm definitely not enjoying the journey, definitely not enjoying the process. I'm just trying to madly rush through it, and kind of the ensuing panic of, this is taking too long, this is going to take too long, I don't have time for this right now. All of that starts to kind of swirl around in my head, and I get more and more frustrated and angry and impatient as those things that I am undertaking or am feeling forced to deal with, in some cases, they're like things that I chose voluntarily, I wanted to do, I do want to do, and yet I just feel overwhelmed. It feels like it's not something that I'm going to be able to accomplish in a reasonable amount of time. And I guess that's kind of how I paint the difference, whereas just a wise, logical amount of restraint of saying, I'm not just going to let myself be co-opted into something that I really don't need to be doing, that's not going to help my long-term goals, it's not going to move me toward what it is that really matters to me, my values. When that's the thing instead of the fear, then there's a calmness to it, and there's a sense of confidence, and there's a sense of alignment, and I don't have any kind of regret, you know, like that's, I guess, where the gut feeling comes in. Like, if it's not fear of draining activities, if it's not fear of wasting time, it really is just sort of a response of wisdom and protection of my own time, protection of my own energy, then I'm usually at peace with that decision that I'm making, and I don't feel like I have to fight to justify it, and I can just, even if it's not appreciated by somebody else, even if it's something that I feel like I'm responsible, I feel like I have to do it, I feel like I've got to take that on, I'm able to set that aside and choose the higher value in the situation, choose what's more important in the situation. So it definitely plays a lot in the boundaries, I'd say. And a lot of it, it's like your emotions are kind of a filter that help you understand if what's going on there is really coming from wisdom, really coming from making the right decision, or if it's the fear that's driving you, if it's the fear that's pulling you. And you know, along with that kind of comes the question of like, what's the difference between a draining activity or attachment or one that's just simply demanding. You know, it just takes a lot from you. It's a very, you know, it's high cost. So high cost can be high benefit, but it can also be a big waste. And so the question is, how do you determine if what it is you're committing to, or you know, maybe all the different things you're committing to, how do you determine if they are draining you, or if they're just, you know, if this is just a tough, you know, a time that you really have to tough it out, a time that you have to really pour yourself into what it is you're doing, and it's high sacrifice, but it's worth it. And again, I think that's where it's important to be able to differentiate between the fear and what's really just wisdom, what's really just reasonable self-protection and protection of your energy and your time, because that makes a huge difference. If you're in that state of fear, you can't really tell the difference between something that's demanding and something that's just, you know, a waste of time, you know, that's just draining you. But when you can get out of the fear, and when you can really just think it through, go with your gut, go with the conviction that comes to you, align with your own highest values, then, you know, there's no regret there. And I think the clarity comes. That's what I've noticed. The clarity comes to me. I know what things I should be doing, what things I should be getting involved with. Like, technically, Brandy and I have like 4 different businesses, 4 different things that we're actually starting up and doing at the same time. We have her Fedora Designs jewelry. We have Shared Vision Media. I obviously have this Sean Douglas show with the walks in the woods, and Sean analyzes it, and the different things I'm creating online to go with that as resources. And also there's what we're doing on the music side of things, and what Brandy is endeavoring to begin with forming a band, and with just all the stuff on the music side of the projects and things she wants to do, and which I have a stake in as well, and things that I also want to do in my own creations and collaboration with her. And so that's 4 different major things, and that's not even including like whatever side projects and things that we do that we do for other people, either pro bono or whatever, that are involved in those 4. And then to top it all off, we're also involved with mentoring and discipling young adults and youths. So really it's kind of like 5 things for that we hope to be a thriving source of income before long, and one that's just purely for building others and doing good in the community and touching lives and giving back, because we've had our own experiences. You know, we understand a lot of what these, teens and young adults are going through and what their needs are and what the kinds of things are facing them out there in the world. So giving them a leg up, being there to support them, being there to believe in them when they really need that. But anyway, yeah, there's 5 different major things, and then all the different projects that are involved in each of those 5 things. It's a lot, man. Like, you could fully commit yourself to any one of those things and you could use all your time on it. You could be completely strapped for time, strapped for energy. And in some cases, sometimes I'm kind of wondering, do I need to sequence this better? Do I need to put one or more of these off for a longer period of time so I can just focus on one and get really good at it, get far in it? Like logic would kind of tell me that would make sense. And the fear of never truly accomplishing much on any of those fronts also would drive me to that. But ultimately, I have a sense of conviction and confidence about those things that we're doing. I believe all 5 of those major categories are vital to our calling, to our personal growth, to what God has called us to do, what we're meant to change in the world. So I'm not giving up on any of them. And I'm working to find the balance, to have the timing right, to get the right rhythms where I can do all those things and do them all well. Do them, where, it's like killing 2 birds with one stone, like finding ways of combining them, finding ways of simultaneously working on 2 or 3 of those at the same time with just well-designed projects, well-designed initiatives, well-thought-out rhythms, that take into account the things that we have to do in life and the things that we want and need to do, and just kind of stringing it together in a well-organized way. But it's a conviction for me, and the sense that this is really what God made us to do. It helps tremendously, and that the trust in that is what I have to walk in, because if I start getting the fear of, I don't know if I can finish this project, I don't know if I can do that thing over there, the frustration of, I've not been finding my rhythm, I've not been finding how to get all these things done at the same time, and wondering if I ever will, that could definitely shut me down. That could definitely, it steals energy from you. So that's the irony. And that's the irony of how most of these fears, all of them, is that they're self-sabotaging. Like, they end up bringing upon you the very thing that you're afraid of. You're afraid of draining activities. You're afraid of wasting time. Well, that fear itself uses up energy. It wastes energy. It wastes time. So the key is, I've been finding, is to get into a place of peace and get into a place of where your convictions are set and are solid, and that what you're doing is what you're supposed to be doing, is what will ultimately be most meaningful. And then you don't allow yourself to try to project too far ahead, try to think too far forward about it all. Be in the moment, do it. And like in my case, where I've got these 5 different things, like there are 5 different buckets, well, only pick up one bucket at a time. You can't pick up all 5. You can't think about all 5. You can't do all 5. That's just a recipe for anxiety. And also learning to have milestones, learning to have stopping points, checkpoints, where it's like, okay, that's enough for today. And not letting, again, the fear stir up anger, stir up anxiety, and even my own expectations of, like, I think I should have been able to get that far and I wasn't, and now I'm upset, now I'm disappointed, I'm annoyed at that. Learning to let those things go, it's vital, because if you're constantly self-punishing, you're constantly dealing with, really negative emotions, and you could think, well, I'm not self-punishing if I'm just frustrated about something, or I'm aggravated, or I'm angry. Well, how much time spent in negative emotions to you is rewarding. Personally, I like to spend as little time in them as possible, and I feel much more rewarded by that. Whereas if I'm miserable because I don't feel like I'm going fast enough, or I feel like things are not getting done, or what have you, then it's definitely demotivating, and it's definitely taking energy away from me. And everybody can say all they want about how discipline's superior to motivation, but when you start getting demotivated, when you start having things that are dragging on you, that are shifting you out of your own highest values and what matters most to you, when everything begins to feel like punishment and there just isn't really real incentive, there just isn't real positive reinforcement of what you're doing, what you're going after, well, how long can you make it like that? How long can you go without encouragement? That's not really a question you should try to answer. Better idea, get encouraged, get motivated, get yourself in a place that your own emotions are helping you and are a strength instead of a problem, instead of a hindrance. That's what I've been learning to do. And it's easier said than done, for sure. And it takes a lot of effort in and of itself, but what I've found is that the effort to self-regulate, the effort that's required to do that, to alchemize and convert even the negative into something useful, and to overcome those self-punishing negative emotional spirals, it's worth it, because you get that creative energy, you get that boost from the work that you've done with that emotion, with that emotional state inside of you, so that you can actually use it. The wind's at your back instead of against your face. I'm of the opinion that we should put everything, all the odds in our favor as much as possible. And emotional state's definitely one of those things. So it's worth facing the fear that stops us, that maybe motivates us in the wrong direction, or even that might be pushing us in the right direction, but it pushes you too far. It pushes you with narrow-sightedness, and it makes you unable to see the big picture. It makes you unable to enjoy it, you know? Like, what if you accomplished your goal, but you didn't enjoy the entire thing? Like, it didn't really strike as meaningful, so the victory's hollow at the end. Well, that's what fear does, and that's why we can learn from it. We can use it to sort of echolocate and understand our surroundings and like sort of our internal world especially. But we don't want to leave it there. We don't want to stay driven by fear. So my thoughts have been on, what have I avoided because I was afraid of it? What was it that I didn't do? And what was it that I gave up because I just was afraid that it wouldn't be worth the cost? I was afraid that it would leave me with nothing. And there are some things that I look back and I see, and it's like, you know what? Even though it was fear that led me to make that decision to not do those things or to not finish certain things out, some of those decisions were the right decision. So I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that it's never happened to come in handy at times. But in retrospect, and where I'm standing now, I'd rather make those decisions by wisdom. I'd rather be able to look at it and see the potential and the value and do what I do because it's something worth doing, and not do things because they're not worth doing. Simple as that. So I've kind of had to answer the question for myself of what does it look like to commit to something without knowing the outcome, without knowing exactly where it's going to go, how it's going to turn out. A lot of times in this world, people think that we should have a 10-year plan. We should know how far every single thing should be. We should map out every single step. And life is just not that black and white and straightforward. It's not that easy to predict. And human beings are awful predictors. Like we're just not good at predicting anything. As prediction machines, we suck. So it's really not the best strategy anyway. We do need to try to project certain things. We do need to try to work through plans and figure stuff out, but in the end, we can't guarantee outcomes. So it's not really a matter of, did it turn out the way that we hoped it would? It's more about, was it worth doing? Even if we failed, even if it doesn't work out, is it worth doing? And that's what I bring myself back to with that question. Whenever I might feel discouraged, I might feel like I'm not hitting certain metrics for success, I remind myself, I'm doing this because it's worth it in and of itself. I'm in love with the process. I enjoy this thing. I know that it is valuable, and even in the pain and the effort, the difficulty, even in facing the fears that are involved with it, it's worth it. It's worthwhile. And that's why I'm doing it. Not because I have a guaranteed outcome, not because everything's going exactly how I think it should all the time, and not putting that sort of arbitrary limitation on at what point am I going to say, that's too much, it's too much and it's not working, and this is just not going to go on, it's not going to happen. Instead of waiting, because we have this sort of artificial thing where it's like, okay, I can handle yay so many disappointments, and after that I quit. But if it's truly something that we're meant to do, that's truly worth doing, something filled with meaning, then the answer is, it doesn't matter how many failures, how many rejections, how many reps that don't seem to go anywhere. It's like a strong man working at a chain, straining and straining at it until finally one day it breaks. You got to have a certain kind of mental toughness, and you have to have a certain belief in what it is you're doing. There's got to be a patient endurance. There's got to be a belief in the value of what it is you're striving toward, so that you can keep that up. And that's something I've been trying to develop in myself. And part of that too, I believe, is the emotional strength of choosing the higher and the better values, choosing love for what we do, love for the people for whom we're doing it and with whom we're doing it, joy in the process itself, even in the pain, even in the hard effort. So I'm going to be asking myself this, and I invite you to ask yourself too, what am I avoiding now because I'm afraid it will drain me? That's something that I know I need to look out for, because I've got so much going on, and that's where fear often lurks, is on the margins of life. It often lurks in the unconscious. It lurks in what's unspoken. It's hidden in the shadow. And if you're a very active, very busy person, if you got a lot going on, then it creeps around and it hides in those shadows. It hides in the corners that you're not paying attention to. So I'm going to be asking myself that. And if you have any further questions about the subject, or you'd like to get into the other fears of the 5-fear compass, or if you have any other questions, anything that you're thinking about, you're processing through in life, then please drop a comment or reach out to me on my DMs anywhere across social media. It's at Ask Sean Douglas. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate you as always. Peace out.